There was a reason that isometric games are few and far between on the Game Boy. A very, very good reason. I've not always had the most enjoyable times with isometric games. The whole up, down, left, right thing is a little too ingrained in my instincts that messing about with it usually confuses me too much. Here, that's the case. To maintain a more visual 3D aesthetic, Altered Space is presented at 45-degree angles, meaning rather than the usual crosshairs, you move your character along the diagonals. In the non-analog age, there were two ways to tackle this. Firstly, you could set the controls the way that they're presented. Press left and down to move diagonally left and down, up and right to move diagonally up and right. The problem with this is that you're constantly pressing two directions just to move in a straight line, which isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. The other way you can do it is to set the 4 cardinal directions on the D-pad to correspond to a diagonal direction in-game. This is the method opted for here. Pressing down on the D-pad moves your astronaut down and to the left. Left moves him up and to the left, and so on. The obvious stumbling block for idiots like me here is this. Why is down pressed for diagonally down and left, and not diagonally down and right? Why does up on the D-pad move you up and right, and not up and left? I suppose the answer is that it has to be one or the other, so the developers just chose one. But you're screwing with habits that I've had for 30 years here, people. What seems like the simplest of remedies is something I just cannot get my little mind around. Try as I might to get to grips with an isometric control scheme, it's just not something I can program myself to do. The number of times I mess up in Altered Space because I've pressed a direction that I didn't intend makes me question myself. That's not the fault of the game per se, as they were fully committed to implementing this 3D style. What is the fault of the game is the unreasonable level of difficulty programmed into the game on top of the control scheme. There's so much in this adventure that kills you in one hit. The spaceship has spikes on around 85% of its flooring, which seems like an ergonomic nightmare, as if space travel wasn't enough of a challenge. Conveyor belts leading to death act as your only platforms. You have to pick up crates and drop them in the air in order to propel yourself mid-jump. Enemies that are instant death on contact just so happen to be hiding right behind a doorway. So, what's this game about anyway? Well, the storyline is actually pretty cool. It's 2020 AD, and Humphrey the astronaut is making the first manned flight to Mars. We overshot that prediction by a little bit, but hey, Elon Musk is only one man. During the trip, his craft's engines shut down, so he ventured outside to try to fix them. Next thing he knew, he awoke in the bowels of this alien craft. Humphrey has found himself on the lowest level of the ship and needs to make his way to the top floor so he can blast out in the escape pod. Problem is, these aliens don't breathe oxygen, but a noxious chlorine gas, so Humphrey must check his air supplies at all times. To pick anything up, you must first jump on it and then press A. Just touching something, as in every single platformer ever, isn't enough. Why are you like this, game? There are a scant handful of items to help you out anyway, and they're all single use, so provide very limited relief against the vast hordes of aliens and robots attacking you. You can replenish your air supply, but be aware that any damage that you take will puncture your suit a little bit and take off some air. This goes down on its own anyway, as if the game wasn't challenging enough. Another brutal aspect of the game is the labyrinthine nature of the place. Each room you enter has a tricky puzzle of some kind, whether it's navigating invisible block sections, which you have to purely guess a lot of the time, or just figuring out how to not get destroyed by the droids. This is made doubly agonizing when you make your way to a door, only for it to lead to a dead end. What's more, you don't get any sort of map until you find a computer interface. This is according to the manual. I've never found one in-game. What music there is works well, although it is foregone through large chunks of the game in lieu of some ambience. This also works pretty well and fits the atmosphere of the game in a similar way to how Metroid 2's Spartan soundtrack did. It's not up to that level, of course, but there's nothing to complain about here. The detail in the room design is very good, but this doesn't help you. It's almost overkill in places. There's too much going on. What's more is that even though we're working with a little screen, only a portion of it is used. Coupled with the bizarre feel of trying to navigate the 3D aspect, makes this game feel really messy and terribly difficult to judge jumps. That's a real problem because jumping is, around 95% of what you need to do. Wondering why there were so few isometric games on the Game Boy? Altered Space should tell you all you need to know. Thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on the game down below, and if you can spare a second, give the review a quick thumbs up, it really helps out. Subscribe to the Portable Power Podcast for a new Game Boy review every day from Monday to Friday. Or alternately, new episodes of the podcast drop every Saturday and Sunday on whichever platform you get your pods. See you later on.